story up here is that we had a phone tree in Sacramento. We'd all agreed that if somebody got busted, we'd call it was seriously like out of a stupid movie. We said, oh, we'll call the next guy, and you say a stupid phrase, and I'll know. And the phrase, and I swear to God, I've never said this in public, and I can't believe I'm about to say it on stage. The phrase, which we thought was totally brilliant, was, "How are your mother's flowers?" Now,
Yeah.
totally inconspicuous if you call someone and say that, right? So I actually did, and this is to be fair, it worked. I called my buddy Pegasus, who was in the scene. I said, "Hey man, how you doing?" He said, "Hey, what's going on? What's new? I didn't see you, the thing last night." I said, "Yeah, man, how are your mother's flowers?" And he just goes silent, because we'd never joked about it. And so he goes, "They're all right, man. Hey, I gotta go." And to be total. To be totally serious, that it actually worked. It was the end of the BBS scene in Sacramento that day. I mean, to obviously to an extent. That he called all the other. It was a very BBS heavy at the time. He called all the other BBS operators, and everybody called everybody. And like 15 major for Northern California, like hacker BBSs went down that day and never came back up. And those guys put their computers in their car and they left. And so I brought a cassette tape thingy to my interrogation, which I was interrogated at a pizza parlor without a lawyer present, to which I instantly responded to everything with, I plead the fifth, I'm not talking to you pricks, blah, 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 blah. And I tape recorded everything because I wanted everybody to know that I wasn't going to rat them out. And I didn't. And I didn't say anything, and the Sacramento busts stopped at me. But before this had happened, they basically, over the past several years, busted pretty much all of us for something. And so we had this Sacramento Choice Link Center group, which with all these people in it, and we had like PerpCon got busted for the Tower Records thing and went down for a year, and Josh was in federal prison. Everybody was getting busted. Magnate was gone, which nobody cared about. And we all thought, this can't go on like this. But it was a characteristic of something that doesn't exist anymore. They looked at us as the bad guys, and we looked at them as the bad guys, so to speak. We had an adversarial relationship, and that is a generation of hackers that existed in that time frame. That if you came into the scene, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but for people that entered this scene, and at that time the relationship with the government, with the feds, with the cops, so to speak, wasn't in this adversarial manner, there was a way that we thought back then that just doesn't exist anymore. And it's very positive now, and I'm very happy that things are like they are. But if you weren't there for that, it's really difficult to understand what that was like, because you were talking about judges who didn't understand what email was. Your parents didn't have email address. Nobody understood when you went into court. When I went into court, and I'm trying to explain this stuff to the court, because the court, to be honest, was very cool with me, trying to let me tell my own story.
It's kind of like, well, so what did you do?
Yeah,
they were asking us as opposed to the prosecution,
yeah,
sometimes, like what we've done.
The district attorney had walking orders to get me on 3 felonies and misdemeanor. I was supposed to be in jail until I was 18 and on no computers until I was 21 or something like that. And I was fucking terrified about this. Literally, absolutely terrified, shaking in my shoes, completely scared. And by the time I got in there and I started to kind of walk them all through what was really going on, I swear to God, before I walked out of that room, first of all, I got off with 1 misdemeanor and 50 hours of community service.
Yeah.
but which the district attorney was slightly less than pleased about. But the bailiff turned over to me, and he's sitting to my side like this, and he leans over and goes, "Psst." And I literally, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to look at him, so I look at him like, he's like, "Do you know anything about AOL?"
Yes.
And I said, I looked at my lawyer, and my lawyer's like, "I don't know." And so I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Because mine's totally fucked up. Can you come in? Can you tell me how to fix it?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I can tell you how to fix it." I'll come over to your house. What do you want me to do? Just get me the hell out of here. And but fast forward a couple years. One thing I did want to clarify about what the prophet was saying is that there's a couple things that you never do, ever. You never, ever screw with emergency services doing prank calls, ever. Never screw with 911, never screw with poison control, never do anything. And
actually, that segues really nicely into the present day.
That segues right into Magnate, and I want to let this point go because he's the one that narked me out. So this is the guy that basically narked me out. Welcome to 3rd grade. So this is the guy that ratted me out to the cops, and you might have seen on CNN a couple months ago that there was some people busted. This is front page stuff for swatting where you use a VoIP, use VoIP and you do this ANI spoofing and you get SWAT called to come to somebody's house. That guy on the front page of CNN, Jason Trowbridge, magnate, the same guy that knocked us out about 3-4 weeks ago, he just got sentenced to 60 months in the federal prison. So.
Yeah. So this is our last slide, and I'm being asked to wrap up very quickly. But fast forward to today, Confs, they're a dime a dozen. Long distance is effectively free, and we still use them because it's still a social thing. A lot of VoIP freaks hang out on the telefreak.org conf, and if any of you are interested in VoIP, that's a great place to get information and kind of hang out with us. But there's a dark side to VoIP, and that is that it's a very new technology. It's very easy to gain access to SS7 and do all sorts of really nasty shenanigans like swatting. And do all of you know what swatting is? Yes, no? Okay. Well, I'll give you a really quick nutshell of swatting. Effectively, when you call 911, your ANI, which is your phone number, gets transmitted to the PSAP. And I wrote a very, very detailed article about this, I think, 2 issues ago in 2600. I write the Telecom Informer column, by the way. So go pick up the issue if you're interested in this. But effectively, if you call up and you're using a certain set of VoIP services, you can spoof somebody's ANI and make a 911 PSAP think that some hostage situation is going down at somebody's house. And they'll respond with, armed cops and a helicopter and all the things that you would hope that the police would do if somebody were holding you hostage in your home and they were armed and crazy. And people very easily, if you pull this kind of stunt, could be killed, and they'd be entirely innocent. So Magnate, the guy's 29 years old, and he's still doing this shit. And so he got in with a couple of younger freaks rather. They started pulling these kind of stunts, and that's the thing that you deserve to go to jail for. Like 5 years isn't long enough for that guy.
Yeah. So,
all right, I think we're done. And next up, there's a social engineering panel of some kind, which I think will be a lot of fun. We got Emmanuel and Mitnick in on it, so stay tuned.
Thanks.
Just a quick reminder, we don't have any paid people that pick up after everybody, so if you could take your beer bottles and your 40s and your various caffeinated beverages and make sure to put them in the trash cans, that would be greatly appreciated. Social engineering is next.